Well, isn't this a wonderful surprise? It's your boy Tom Boom making a second podcast within 1 week. Wow, that's an accomplishment no human being has ever thought he could do. Isn't this just fantastic, guys? Tom Boom is making two podcasts in 1 week. Please give him a hand, y'all. Give him a hand. Uh, yeah, how have you all been doing? I've been doing pretty good. I got a busy weekend this week. I'm double booked this weekend. I've got a play going on for this a theater community, and I've also got I've got a stand up comedy bit coming up the day afterwards. So I have a play on Saturday, and I have a stand up bit on Sunday. I'll be honest, the stand-up bit's been getting me nervous a little bit because haven't really squeezed in any time to figure out what kind of bit I want to do. A couple months back, I wrote a rough draft of what I want to do for my bit, and if anyone's interested, I'm performing at a comedy club called Side Splitters. So if you know where that is, and if you're in the area, consider checking it out. But I've been thinking about what to like a couple months ago. I wrote a rough draft of what of what I'm gonna say for my act, but recently haven't been able to review it and see if I even like it or not because I've been busy with school and all this other stuff going on. I'm not really sure. So basically what I'm trying to say is I'm not really that prepared for it. I don't really think it looks the best, and I haven't been to other venues to test out this material that I've written and see if it's any good or not. So that's going to be interesting to do because I won't have time to be able to go anywhere else before this act that I'm supposed to do this Sunday. So I'm basically having to wing it and hope for the best that people like it. And yeah, you know what? That's no fun. Just a tip for anyone who's interested in doing this. If you're scheduled to perform at a venue, make sure that it's funny beforehand. Go to other venues and perform your comedy there and see if people like it. Otherwise, you'll just go and just be not prepared at all. And if you're planning to go to this big event that you have to wait months for, and you do your material and people don't find it funny, well, then it almost feels like a waste of time, like you waited months for nothing. So make sure that you perform it for other people or friends or family to see if if they like it or not. But yeah, it's that time of year when all the love bugs are coming out and all the bugs are just scissoring and doing all this weird sex stuff, and they're doing it all over your car, and it's fucking nasty. I was driving to work yesterday morning, and there was fucking love bugs all over my car. Like where I was parked, there was literally hundreds of all these love bugs, and some of them got into my car, and I was having a fucking hard time trying to swing all of them out because they were everywhere. They were flying everywhere in my car, and it was hard to get all these damn bugs out of my car. It was it wasn't just work. Everywhere I went, I stopped at Dunkin' Donuts afterwards, and there was an even more love bugs just swarming everywhere. And I was having, and again, I had to get out of the car just being surrounded by all these love bugs who were fucking attacking me and doing all this other shit, and do piss off. Nobody wants you people. You guys are literally the most annoying bugs ever. You people, you bugs trigger the incels. You love bugs trigger the incels because you're constantly reminding them of their loneliness. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Their lives are already miserable enough. You don't want to add on to this, to even more miserable lives by your disgusting insectiness. disgusting scissoriness, you know? But yeah, I'm going to change it up a little bit for today. Today I've got some stories with me that we can read and we can talk about. And these are stories that I think are pretty interesting. Some stories that I think we should talk about because I think some of these stories there's an important message for some of these stories, and I think it's important to talk about it. So, what exactly do I mean? Well, first of all, I recently there's this article by CNN I recently read, and I've got the article right in front of me where apparently the teen suicide rate among boys has been raised significantly higher since the 13 Reasons Why show premiered on Netflix last year, I think. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, or maybe it was 2 years ago, basically there was this show on Netflix called 13 Reasons Why, and basically it was about this teenage girl who was constantly being bullied by a whole bunch of her peers in class, like in school, and basically she decides to take her own life. But before she does that, she records 13 different cassette tapes and sends each one out to the 13 people who she says contributed to her killing herself. And I fucking hated this show, to be honest. This is one of my least favorite shows I've ever watched. I've seen the first season of the show, never saw the second season. In my opinion, this is one of the worst shows I've ever watched, and the main reason that I hate this show so much is because of the whole suicide aspect to it. They market this show as a way to talk about suicide for young people and as to what are some of the aspects to suicide and how to prevent suicide. But here's the thing. This TV show does a really terrible job at doing that. Now, maybe I've never seen the second season, so maybe I'm judging a little bit too harshly, but I watched the first season, and the whole show, based on the first season that I've seen, the whole show pretty much romanticizes the idea of suicide. It's like they make it out to be a revenge flick where all this drama happens between all these people, and they're all sort of in this sort of turmoil amongst themselves, arguing if they're gonna get in trouble for causing the girl who, and it's been years since I've seen this show, so I don't remember what a lot of the characters' names are, but like who's responsible for her death, and like why are they being dragged in to this whole mess, and it glorifies, well, maybe not glorifies, but romanticizes this idea of suicide by killing herself, by thinking that she's gonna get some sort of form of revenge by doing this and that, and in a way to make all of the other people pay for her death. And in a weird sort of morbid way, it almost encourages other people to commit suicide. It doesn't really encourage them to not commit suicide. Like, let me read you some of this a piece of this article by CNN to show you what I mean, because they actually did a study to show that the suicide rate has actually gotten worse. So let me read this to you. Researchers at Nationwide Children's Hospital measured monthly and annual rates of suicide reported to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention from 2013 through 2017 among people ages 10 to 64. They then divided them into age groups. The month immediately follows the release of the show had a suicide rate of 0.57 per 100,000 10 to 17-year-olds, the highest rate of the 5-year study period in this age group. The 9 months after the release saw an extra 195 deaths by suicide in this age group than would have otherwise been expected from seasonal patterns alone, according to the study published Monday in the Journal of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. The increase was primarily driven by boys, whose rates of suicide went up 28.9% in the month after the premiere of the show. Rates remained stable for girls during the same month, even though a teen girl is the show's main character. Yeah, so this is what I'm talking about. Here's the thing. I watched this show 2 years ago, back when I was still in high school. I was like 18 or 19 years old, in a similar rate. I'm technically not in the age range that they're talking about, but I was pretty close. I was about 18 or 19 years old. Close to the statistics that this article is talking about. And I watched the entire first season of the show back when I was still in high school. And while I don't want to get into too much detail, when I was in high school, I went through a lot of mental challenges, to say the least. I had a lot of this anxiety, this depression. I had, and through certain parts of high school, I went through, like what this show was talking about, certain suicidal thoughts. And when I watched the first season, my suicidal thoughts had gotten a lot worse, because this is a very dark show. It's just fucking depressing. It doesn't do anything to help people who are struggling with suicide. In fact, if you are someone who's struggling through suicidal thoughts, I strongly advise that you avoid this show at all costs, because I was someone who was going through some suicidal tendency thoughts back in high school, and this fucking show made those thoughts so much worse. After I watched that season, I actually after I finished the season, there was a thought that was constantly going back in my mind about how to kill myself and how should I accomplish that. Now, if anyone's worried about my mental health, I just want to let you know I'm not thinking those thoughts anymore. I've gotten a lot better since then. I feel a lot more happy since I graduated high school. But this is the kind of shit that makes those thoughts a lot worse. It doesn't really do anything to help those thoughts. It just sort of acts as a way to accelerate it. And unfortunately, this show might have influenced some young people that were close to my age group to take their own lives too. Because apparently the suicide rate spiked after this show premiered. And they say too that their plan for this show was to help people who are going through suicidal thoughts, and you apparently fucked that up really badly. You made it much worse than it originally was. The suicide rate got worse when this show premiered. And like, listen to this. There's a quote somewhere at the bottom. Like, okay, here it is. Netflix said in a statement Tuesday, "This is a critically important topic, and we have worked hard to ensure that we handle this sensitive issue responsibly." Well, you didn't. Apparently, you weren't sensitive enough, or at least you fucked up pretty bad, because the suicide rate got worse since your show premiered. So you're not doing a very good job at talking about it. If the rate of suicide is influencing people to kill themselves even more. God, it's like if you were trying to do a documentary about stopping forest fires, and that documentary encouraged people to burn even more forest down than to actually prevent it. It's like you did a terrible job, Netflix. Whoever worked on the show, I think Selena Gomez was the lady who actually was one of the producers on the show. You fucked up, Selena Gomez. You made even more young people kill yourselves. That's not why you made the show, and you just did it worse. If you didn't glorify this whole... If you didn't glorify suicide in this show, this wouldn't have happened. God. Yeah, this is a depressing topic, and you know, it's interesting too is that it's mainly boys this is affecting too. But I think it has to do with the fact that boys tend to be not as open to this type of discussion. Women, you know, girls and women are a lot more open to about their feelings when it comes to certain things. Men, and I think that that's one of the privileges women and females get, is that they're allowed to express what they're feeling without being mocked or ridiculed. Men are just sort of are taught that no matter what it is they're feeling, like they have to man up. In other words, just whatever emotions that they're feeling, they have to keep all of those emotions bottled into their bodies, and that's not a healthy way of living. When you don't express what you're feeling and you just sort of wrap it all up into a nice little bow and keep that deep down inside you, it doesn't solve the problem. It just makes what could be a small issue, and over time it magnifies it and makes it so much worse over time, and it gets to the point where it leads to suicide. And I think if you look at the statistics for suicide rates, boys commit suicide at a much faster rate, at a much more higher rate than girls do, because girls are more open about their feelings about suicide and wanting to kill themselves. Like this, there's a point in this article that actually says, while boys are commit suicide at a higher rate, girls will report their suicide or report their feelings about wanting to commit suicide at a higher rate than boys. And it's because being a woman gives them the privilege of being able to confess what they're feeling about without being ridiculed by the public and being told that they don't have, and not having to be told that they have to man up and just suck it up or get over it. This is getting a little bit depressing. We'll move on to something else. This is something that I've heard about a little bit. Apparently, there's this fucking sex cult called, I don't know how you pronounce it, Nxivm or something like that. And it's this weird sex cult run by this guy named Keith Raniere, I think that's how you pronounce it. And apparently he persuaded all these women to join this weird cult that he has, where he basically convinced all these different women to fuck him, basically. And I think one of the people who one of the women who acted as his recruiters to get more women into this cult, I think one of them was an actress from like Supergirl or Flash or one of the Arrowverse shows. I think I'm not totally 100% sure on that. I would need to do a fact check on that, but like someone from Smallville, I think it was Smallville, that was recruiting all these women to be part of this rape-ish thing, sort of sex cult. Let me. I got an article in front of me right now, so why don't we experience this together and see what it has to say. A judge in federal court in Brooklyn has been winnowing the pool of possible jurors with a questionnaire that appears to ask, among other things, whether they can be fair to someone with multiple sexual partners and how they feel about sexually explicit images and possibly skin modification, such as tattoos and brandings. They also may have been asked if they had ever taken Scientology courses or participated in self-help groups like the Landmark Forum or EST, according to a draft of the juror questionnaire. Mr. Renier stands accused of running Nxivm, or however the fuck you pronounce that, which billed itself as a self-help group like a cult, subjecting and abusing women who joined, and former members said punishing those who disobeyed his orders to have sex only with him. See, this is the kind of thing about cults. See, this is one of the benefits of cults, that if you can find enough people who are really stupid, you can pretty much convince them to do anything you want, and even more so if depending on if they're like rich people in a sort of high position of power. Because if you can start a cult and convince them, and if they're dumb enough to believe your sort of cult message or whatever sort of bullshit message that you're trying to send, you can pretty much convince them to do whatever the fuck you want, you know. Or you can be like this guy and convince a whole bunch of women to bone you because that's what your mystical god powers tells you to do. Or you can, or if they're really rich, you can convince them to give you a whole bunch of money or video games or blow or whatever the fuck you want, you know. And you know, you'll never have to work again in a day of your life. You just have to work on how to figure out how to start your cult, and then boom, you're pretty much set for the rest of your life, because you have all these mindless idiots doing whatever it is you want to do. So yeah, I'm not encouraging that you start a cult. I'm just saying that's how it be, you know. That is how it be. You could figure out what your core message of your cult is, and then you can now convince people to bone you or give you money or blow or whatever the hell you feel like doing. You'll never have to work again in a day of your life. You just have to figure out how to plan out this cult, and then once you've got all of that under your belt, you can retire after that, basically, because you've got brainless idiots doing all the rest of your work for you. But yeah, in all seriousness, this guy is a piece of shit. He should rot in prison for the rest of his life for, you know, abusing women. In all seriousness, though, he was, oh my god, I was right about one of his recruiters being an actress from Smallville. I'm looking at, I found the article right now. Allison Mack, who was an actress on Smallville, pleads guilty in the case of Nxivm. She was like one of the people who was recruiting women to be part of this weird sex cult. Damn. She threw her acting career away just so she can get some dick. The things people will do for either dicks, tits, or butts, or all of the things like that. You have a full career in front of you where you can become a successful person, and you throw all of that away to be part of a weird sex cult. People are weird, man. People will do some of the stupidest things. Let's see what else we got here. In other news, some people should not have guns on them. Like, some people just really shouldn't have guns on them. Here we've got a story about apparently a 12-year-old boy was charged with shooting his 10-year-old brother, murdering his 10-year-old brother by shooting him. A 12-year-old Texas boy was charged with murder for allegedly shooting his 10-year-old brother dead, officials say. The unidentified minor was taken into custody Saturday after cops found his sibling with a single gunshot wound to the chest around 2:30 p.m. at a home in Conroe, Texas. The Montgomery, I don't know how to say that, Montgomery County Sheriff's Office said. Why the fuck did a 12-year-old boy have a gun? See, this is one of the problems. I won't get into too much detail with the gun debate, because honestly, it's sort of a cesspool of different talking points and all of this sort of stuff, and I don't want to get into too much detail, but I will say, and I will defend some of the gun control sort of people a little bit. Yes, you do have to take a permit, take a test, in order to buy a gun. It's not super easy to buy a gun. If you want to get your hands on a gun, you have to make sure you have to follow a set of really strict guidelines. If you want your own gun, like you can't have a criminal record. You need to be mentally sound enough to purchase a gun. There's very strict rules in place that a lot of gun shop owners have if people want to buy a gun. But one thing that people don't seem to, that people who make those talking points, something that people don't seem to really think about is, okay, sure, they have tests in place, really strict tests for people to buy a gun, sure. But here's the thing. After they buy that gun, what's to stop from an outside entity to go to that person's property and steal a gun from that's under that property? Like, I know there's been mass shootings that have happened in the past where a shooter obtains a gun because the shooter was able to obtain a gun because they know a person, whether it be a family or a friend. They know a person who has a crap ton of guns. They go to their house, they steal their gun by any means necessary. They take all of their guns and then use those guns to go to wherever they feel like going and go on a massive shooting spree. And look at this right now, a 12-year-old boy. How did that boy get his hands on a gun in the first place? I know most gun shops wouldn't even allow you to buy a gun unless you were at least 18 years old. And I think there was a law put in place where to buy certain types of guns, you had to be like 21 years old or older, I think. So it begs the question, how did he get his hands on this gun? Like, hopefully he didn't get this gun at like a gun show, you know, because there was a and it was the craziest fucking thing. There was this there was like a 13-year-old kid who filmed himself going to this gun show, and like he had a camera strapped. It was one of those hidden cameras, I think, that he had strapped to his chest. He had the hidden camera. He walked into this gun show where it's like it's sort of like a yard sale, but you know, for people wanting to sell guns. He walked up to this guy who had a booth up. He asked for a gun, a rifle, or whatever type of gun. The guy did not ask this kid for ID or a permit or anything, or any sort of legal documentation to say this kid could buy a gun. All the kid did was give him money, and he gave him the gun, and that was it. Really? You're giving a dangerous weapon. You're giving this child a dangerous weapon, a 13-year-old kid, a weapon, something that he could use to kill, depending on how good he is with his aim, could kill a whole bunch of people with it. Are you fucking retarded? Like, are you seriously stupid enough to just hand a kid a weapon without any sort of legal documentation? That is really stupid. What in the fuck were you thinking when you did that? God. I don't know how this kid got his hand on a gun, but whoever it was, whoever owned that gun, fucking throw him in prison or take that gun away, because clearly whoever owned the gun that the child owned, whether maybe it was his mom or dad or something like that, they're not responsible enough with guns to actually own them if their fucking child can get their hands on it. And then there's just some people who just shouldn't have guns at all because they're just really stupid with them. Like this guy right here. This is a story by the Tampa Bay Times where basically this guy who was at a Publix pretty much just discharged his gun in the middle of Publix. Let's read this story. Publix, where shooting is a pleasure? Not quite, but that didn't stop a shopper at the Land O'Lakes Publix on Collier Park from accidentally shooting himself with his weapon while inside the store on Sunday. According to the Pasco Sheriff's Office, the victim, identified only as a white male, was transported to a hospital with non-life-threatening injuries to his lower extremity. Wait, what? Oh, wait, these are different stories. Yeah, but anyways, whatever. You get the picture. Some fucking idiot had his gun on him, discharged his weapon, and fucking shot himself in the middle of a Publix. Like, people shouldn't have guns, man. Like, I know this whole gun debate, it's a really sensitive topic. Some people are really passionate about wanting to keep their guns. That's just how we are as a country. But, like, do some fucking tests to make sure that people have the fucking mental capacity to actually carry these damn guns. There's just some people who shouldn't have their hands on guns, like this idiot. And obviously, a 12-year-old boy should not have his hand on a gun. And obviously, it happened in Texas, of all places, because everyone knows Texas people, they love their guns, man. Man. Let's talk about some lighter news. This is so it doesn't get too depressing. There's actually been some interesting news about Avengers. I made that special. I call it a special, even though it was special. That podcast about the Avengers Endgame movie, it was special in a couple of different ways, you know. It was special because I talked about Avengers Endgame for the entire time, but it was also special because the audio was shit. Because for some fucking reason, it was Audacity wanted to record my webcam audio instead of my regular microphone, and I didn't notice that until after I was done recording that podcast, where I saw the audio was the same audio that from my webcam audio. So, you know, so my special episode of the Boomcast had to be played with shitty webcam audio because Audacity just had to crap out on me for some reason. Luckily, it's all been fixed and it hasn't been happening since. Hopefully, I don't stop this this episode to figure out to hear that it happened again, because that would suck. But this is interesting. I want to read some of this. Apparently, Avengers Endgame has done better in the box office than Titanic, which I think Titanic broke the record for most grossing, for making the most money within a single weekend. Apparently, Avengers Endgame just broke that record. So, let me read you some of this article. As the late great Stan Lee would say, Excelsior! Avengers Endgame crushed the competition at the box office once again last week and padding its nearly $2.2 billion take, not only handily winning the period but blowing past Titanic to become the world's second highest grossing film of all time. with the throne set in its sights. The superhero blockbuster's Hulk-sized haul sits at more than 2.188 billion internationally, according to the deadline, barely enough to sink Titanic for second place. So I think Avengers Endgame became has made the most money in theaters, slightly more so than Titanic, but they just did it barely, as you know, you can hear from me reading. The superhero blockbuster Hulk-sized haul sits at more than... Oh, yeah, I already read that. Endgame now sits behind only another James Cameron-directed epic, Avatar, which ultimately racked up $2.8 billion and eclipsed the $2 billion threshold 47 days after its 2009 release, or more than 4 times the 11 days Endgame has been in theaters. The spirit to $2 billion is an unbelievable, said Paul de Garabedian, senior media analyst for number crunching company ComScore. We're in uncharted territory. Usually films like this are marathoners. Yeah, so it's amazing to see how well Endgame is doing. I mean, I'm not really surprised by this because of the kind of Marvel movie this is. This is basically, from what I've been hearing, the final Avengers film to wrap up the current phase of the MCU. I think starting this year or next year, they're going to begin phase 4 of the MCU. But yeah, it's great to see how well they're doing. I'm really happy. I've been a huge fan of this franchise since I was a kid. I kind of fell out, halfway through high school because of reasons, but it's great to see this franchise is doing well. And even more news on Avengers Endgame. I heard about this story from Bill Burr on his podcast, but I thought this story was fucking hilarious. So I want to talk about it a little bit tonight for this show. So a guy got beaten up at a theater after he spoiled the ending for Avengers Endgame. It was... This story is fucking hilarious, man. I love it. Let me read you some of the article. What was supposed to be an exciting evening for Marvel moviegoers at a Hong Kong cinema turned sour on Friday when a man decided to shout major spoilers to fans waiting in line to see Avengers Endgame. Per deadline, the unidentified man spent a few minutes taunting the fans with plot developments. Obviously, we won't be repeating them here. Before being beaten and left bloodied on the side of the street. A photograph circulated online reportedly shows the man with blood coming out of the side of his head while he awaits medical treatment. Earlier this month, Endgame directors Joe and Anthony Russo posted a plea on social media for people not to spoil the film's ending, out of respect for fans who won't be able to watch it in theaters right away. Because so many of you have invested your time, your hearts, and your souls into these stories, we're once again asking you for your help. Their statement read, in part, Remember, Thanos still demands your silence. So, yeah. Man, fans really care about their movies. It's crazy what the lengths people will go to when you gather enough of them in a mob and someone does something stupid to, like, piss them off. Like, I've never seen a story go to this length where someone like fucking beat the ever living shit out of someone who spoiled the movie. It's crazy how passionate some fans can be about these movies and the extreme lengths that they're willing to go to because of the pure love that they have for a franchise. I don't think that I would go to this length that these people did, but it's crazy. Like, what Bill Burr said, like, they found the boiling point to tick fans off. You mess with their movies, their superheroes, and they'll go apeshit crazy. It's crazy, man. It reminds me of a video that came out a few years ago, way back when The Force Awakens premiered in theaters. I think it was opening night that movie premiered. Basically, it was they were in theaters. A guy was recording the audience reaction to the opening of the movie. The LucasArts opening credits scene open where it said Lucasfilms, and people cheered, "Yeah, Lucasfilms!" And then right before the Star Wars intro popped up, some guy in the front row had his flash on, and literally hundreds and hundreds of people were fucking screaming at him to shut off his phone. And then after all the shouting died down, this fucking nerdy soy boy was yelling, "Turn off your phone, you fucking moron." It was funny, man. Like, you have all these soy boys yelling at a guy because his flash was on. I didn't even fucking see his flash was on. I only noticed it because the video pointed like his arrow where the flash was, and even then it wasn't really that noticeable. Like, to me as someone watching the video, it looked like they were losing their shit for nothing. But I never got, again, I wasn't sitting in that theater, so maybe it was a lot brighter from their perspective. I don't know. But still, like, all these soy boys are yelling at a guy to turn off his flash for like a fucking Star Wars movie, which, by the way, the new Star Wars movies are shit. I'm going to be honest, they're shit. I haven't seen The Last Jedi yet, but I'm kind of skeptical about watching it because I've heard a lot of bad things about it, and I don't know if I want to put myself through like 2.5 hours of that movie, because I know some of the spoilers that happen in the movie anyway, so I don't even know if it will be even worth it or not. But yeah, it's crazy. Like, these fans are fucking going ape shit crazy because some poor dude happened to have his flash on. "Do you know how hard I had to get for these tickets, man? I had to let my pet starve in order to get these tickets. I'm literally letting Tyrone fuck my wife so that I have time to see this new Star Wars movie. Ugh. I'm letting my hairy sweat drip all over me so that I can see this new Star Wars movie. Oh." You know, I literally lost my job to see this movie, guys. Don't have your flash on, you asshole. I lost my job, my career, my everything. I chopped off my dick and sold it on eBay so that I could afford tickets to this movie, damn it. Fans are crazy. How long has this been going on for? Oh, almost 45 minutes. Jeez. And I think I talked about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie a little bit, but I kind of rushed it for time or something. I don't feel like I did a good job with it last podcast, so I'll talk about it a little bit now just to get a more detail, I guess. But if you all haven't heard the story, basically the guy who's directing the new Sonic the Hedgehog movie, which the trailer wasn't the best. I'll say that much. It was, I guess you could say it was bad. Really bad. It was just, it was something. But apparently it was enough backlash where the guy who directed who's directing the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, he made a statement acknowledging that a lot of people hate this, and that apparently he and the other people who are working on this movie, they're redoing all the scenes to make it look better. Let me read you a piece of this article to get a better understanding. Sonic the Hedgehog to be redesigned after fan backlash over creepy teeth. The teeth were really weird, if I'm going to be honest. I don't know what they were thinking about giving Sonic human teeth. I don't know who the hell thought that was a good idea. Sonic the Hedgehog movie director Jeff Fowler is burrowing in shame after outraged fans forced him to redraw his star character, whose giant teeth creeped out viewers and sparked a backlash against the flick. So the film, starring Jim Carrey and James Marsden and set to be released in November, will be reworked with a reconfigured Sonic. The message is loud and clear, Fowler tweeted Thursday. You aren't happy with the design and you want changes. It's going to happen. I'm not really sure how they'll be able to do it in the time that they have. It's to my understanding, CGI and all that stuff takes a really, really long time to do. And they only have 6 months left before the movie premieres. And here's the thing, because they're redesigning that character, that means all the CGI scenes that the people have already worked on, they have to redo all of those CGI scenes now. They have to redo all those CGI scenes from scratch. That's going to take a really long time, man. They might have to postpone this movie to a later date so that they have more time to work on this, to work on the new and improved Sonic. Maybe they'll make him into Sonic. Wouldn't that be cool? That's how they really should be designed. They should make him into Sonic. Are these the fantasies? Have your fantasies been finally Have your fantasies been finally quenched, Sonic fans? You weird Sonic people who make all that weird Sonic fan art. Have your fantasies finally been quenched? As a Sammy Classic Sonic fan would say. I hope so, because this is a blah. Because I think Jeff Fowler has been looking at all your fan art and been plotting out this movie based on all your weird foot fetish fan art. Yeah, maybe that's maybe that's how they're plotting this movie. It's a weird Sonic fanfic. Hell yeah, dude. Anyways, this has been fun. I think this has been a really good episode of the podcast. I'm gonna sign off for now. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. If you like this podcast, make sure you subscribe to my main channel for my comedy bits, and also subscribe to either my SoundCloud or the main or the Boomcast YouTube channel if you want to keep hearing this podcast. And yeah, I think that's gonna do it for now. Hope you all have a wonderful day, everyone, and yeah, peace.